everyone. I think we'll go ahead and get started here. As you all know, I'm Erin Brunell, Vice Chair of the School Building Committee. It is Thursday, March 23rd of 2023, which is such a great date. And I'm going to go ahead and officially call this meeting to order. Just a reminder to all those participating that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. And actually, if it's okay, I'm going to bring up the changes to the implications for the open meeting laws now, seeing as we're discussing the fact that the meeting is being recorded. So the governor of the state of Massachusetts extended the open meeting laws to be remote through March 31st. So I thought that we were going to have to switch to different regulations moving forward, but luckily the mayor of Holyoke issued an executive order extending it as well. So we can continue to meet remotely for the indefinite future. If it does expire and we have to go back to what the governor issued, basically what will happen is in person, the person running the meeting, so myself or Josh, the chair or vice chair, would need to be present in person. And we would also need to have a minimum quorum present in person, and then everyone else could be online. So luckily that change does not need to happen right away, but it's something that we might need to think about moving forward if the executive order ends up expiring. There is no definitive end date on that right now. So that's why we had that in the agenda, because like I said, the governor's order was only until the 31st. That being said, we can move on from that. I did not receive any public comments. Ms. Linville, you did not either. Okay, great. So the purpose of tonight's meeting, we're going to go over some meeting objectives, share updates on the progress since our last meeting, review the building systems and basics of the design, discuss again the timing of the presentations to City Council, and share working group updates, and then review next steps moving forward. So I will go ahead and turn this over to Margaret or Bob to review schematic design schedule and review activity within the last week, and just an overall update before we go on to Mount Vernon's presentation of building systems.
So do we want to just take attendance?
Oh, Ms. Little usually did it on the side, but if you want to do a verbal attendance, we can.
Aaron, and maybe you can see if everybody's here.
Yeah, I recorded and I bolded at the top, and Merrick, who's absent, so you don't need to.
Okay. Well, so hello, everybody. In this fast-paced project, things are moving along, and I wanted to kind of re-ground us all in where we are with the schedule. So I'm going to pull up a schedule and talk a little bit about it, because it folds in you remember my early schedule that had the sort of different line item for everyone. This is a new version that actually also includes City Council as well as some other components. So can folks see this document?
Yes.
Like a big spreadsheet. Okay. So I'm going to walk through this bit by bit. Stop me with questions. Just to remind you, so up at the top here is the schedule for the next couple of months. So this is not looking into the construction period. It's really focused on getting to the funding agreement for the project. And so it's sort of starting pretty much with where we are this week, March 23rd. So this is the meeting that we're at right now, Middle School Building Committee. And it's organized, the consultant team is at the top, their activities, community engagement, this committee's work, the MSBA's work, some things that are going on in the district, and then the City Council's work. And it's lined up so that you can see where things are happening simultaneously. And there's a big simultaneity happening the week of April 10th, which I want to talk about. So let me, I think that I want to just briefly talk about where the consultants' teamwork is. So the documents were all submitted to the estimators at the beginning of this week, so on the 20th. And they are off and running. As we've discussed before, it's 2 different estimators estimating in parallel. Those estimates are going to be complete on April 7th, And then there's going to be an estimate reconciliation on the 10th, which is a Monday. Now, also happening that week, there's a lot happening that week. There's a public information session on the 10th as well as on the 5th, the week before. On the 13th, which is the Thursday of that week, we're going to be presenting the estimates and as well as components of the schematic design submittal to you for your comment. And then also on the 13th, I am required as your OPM, if the building committee is in agreement that they are prepared to move forward with the project and make a submittal on this April date, I have to send a notice that day by midnight saying we're planning to submit. So, so I want to stress that there is a lot going on this week, and it's going to be a scramble to get these estimates, to digest these estimates, to digest the material, and for you all to get to a level of comfort about giving me authorization to say, yes, we're doing this. So I just don't want anyone to sort of downplay that. If that sounds like a lot going on, it is a lot going on, but that is what we need to do in order to make this date here. So this is the date, the deadline by which the submission has to go to the MSBA, April 27th. And then that sets us up, if you look at the MSBA line, that sets us up for their June 21st board vote. At that point, they will have approved it, and the community has 120 days to approve it. Now, as it's been laid out at this point, the Holyoke City Council pieces of this, which have been proposed, are that there's going to be an April 18th presentation to City Council, and then it will get referred to the Finance Committee, who would discuss it on May 3rd. We have a hold and a calendar for possibly going back to the Finance Subcommittee for the 17th, and then the proposed City Council meeting to vote on funding is proposed for June 6th. Now, as you can see, that vote can come later, but we are obviously kind of very aware that the City Council doesn't meet in the summer. So the goal is to kind of get this queued up and give them time to digest it and then get the vote, sometime in the month of June. And that's important for the schedule that Mount Vernon Group has proposed, because they really want to launch into bidding the demolition of Peck and the site work shortly after that. So I'm going to stop for a minute and see if there are any questions, because this is a very dense schedule, shall we say. So I see Mark's hand is up, and I see Holyoke Media's hand is up.
Who do you want to go first?
How about Holyoke Media?
I think they just didn't lower it since before starting the meeting.
Oh, okay. All right.
But they can let us know if they need something.
Yeah.
Right.
So the only question I have, it's just being submitted to the City Council on 4/18. There's not actually a presentation to the City Council, right? Because I'm assuming it'll be presented that day and then sent to Finance.
Aaron, do you have a sense of what's intended for that date?
I'm pretty sure it's a full-on presentation. Is Mayor Garcia with us?
Yeah.
Because
Mayor
generally,
Garcia and Councilor Tallman are, so I would defer to them.
Yeah,
because
'cause
generally they'll take it in and then send it to committee.
Yeah, but
You
I'm
know.
pretty sure we plan to do a presentation. But Anthony, are you here? Or Josh can jump in?
Thank you so much. What's the question?
All I was asking was on 4/18. It says there's a presentation to the City Council. But is that when it's just going and then it's going to be sent to committee? Or is there actually going to be a presentation, which typically doesn't happen?
Presentations will happen in committee. I think we had talked about this. Maybe there was a confusion on how so it's going to be, well, I guess defined, it's going to be presented to the council as an order. And it'll get
Yeah,
moved-
in the bond authorization language and that type
Those are
of
two
stuff.
separate, so the
Okay.
order gets presented, it moves to committee. Committee is where the actual presentation will take place, and then it gets moved back to the council for a full
Yeah,
recommendation.
so it's not really, we're not really presenting anything until 5/3.
I hope not.
Yeah, well, that's what I would think, but I just wanted to make
Okay.
sure.
Yeah. No, it's a
Okay.
good question, Mark.
But
Yeah.
shouldn't we have something like a presentation that is given to them that they can send to the committee? We might not present
Yeah.
on it, but I think
If you
it'd be
have-
a good idea for them to have like building information, the design,
yeah.
like all of that good stuff should be like the council should have that. And so that before it gets to the finance subcommittee, they have a lot of material that they could review, aside from just financing. What is that
Yeah,
right?
100%. I agree
Okay.
with that. For sure.
But we're not going, right, to Mark's point, you're right, we're not going to the council and prepare a whole presentation at that first meeting.
Okay. So ideally, if we were, if public wanted to come support, that would not be the meeting we'd want them to come to. We'd want them,
Yeah,
okay. Because when we have the public meeting on the 5th, we're going to be discussing how the public can help advocate for this. So I just wanted to be clear on what meeting we're going to want them to.
unless, I see Councilor Tallman has his hands up, unless he's got a whole different plan or strategy. I'm just going by historically how the order of procedures that the council normally follows. Councilor Tallman.
Yeah. Yeah. Mayor,
Yep.
I think you're right on point. I think it gets presented as an order to the full board because, we meet that night. It'll be presented to us, sent to the committee. And I would expect the first meeting in finance on the 3rd, we would have a presentation to the full finance committee. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of counselors that could be there or, see it on Zoom with some questions. And hopefully we can get it done in 2 meetings. That's my expectation. I've talked to Councilor McGivern and hopefully we can get it done by the 17th of May.
Thanks, team. Okay. Not seeing any other hands at the moment. I want to just mention a couple other things that are embedded in this. So,
Can I say something real quick, Margaret?
sure.
I did want people to know that the mayor, Anthony, and Aaron have written a summary note for the city council that's going to be submitted for that first council meeting in April as well, just to bring them up to speed. And Councilor Tallman made some comments at the last city council meeting as well.
Great. So a couple of other things to be aware of. So on the community engagement things, I assume you have these events in your calendar. There's on the 5th of April, there's an in-person public information session. And then on the 10th, which is a Monday, there's a virtual public information session. So definitely hoping as many of you as possible can come on the 5th. As far as other middle school committee things to be aware of. So this is our meeting tonight. We have a meeting on, we have a tour of the Harrisburg School in Ludlow at 3:30 on the 31st, which is next Friday. Then this week, the week of April 3rd, is also the week of Good Friday. I mean, in truth, it would be, there's going to be, this meeting is going to be, let me just say, it's going to be, even assuming that all the estimates come in or where we want, there's just a ton of information to look at. So the thought about the schedule for these meetings is that it'll be presented to you.
I don't have any.
And then you'll have a chance to look at it, review it, and then on the 25th, answer any further questions. But we need, actually, the committee has to vote to authorize the submittal here. in order for the consultant team to make the submittal on the 27th. So that's kind of the way these pieces, and this meeting on the 25th was intentionally designated as a Tuesday meeting. It's not a Thursday meeting. And that's because this date, the submittal date, is the Thursday. Okay. And then as far as the MSBA is concerned, just a couple things to know. So again, this date on the 13th is a really important date because that's when we have to tell them if we're running into a situation where the committee for some reason does not want to submit, there's no strike against the committee or the community to make a later submittal. The reason we are shooting for this date is a twofer. So one is because city council doesn't meet in the summer. So if you don't submit here, it sort of becomes harder to do all the city council stuff. But also because of the demolition. So that's the big decision that's going to happen on the 13th. Okay. And then what happens after that is during this period of time, well, here's school vacation week, is this gray, the week of the 17th. Starting at the time of the submittal, the MSBA and DESE are reviewing the submittal and providing comments back. Typically about 3 to 4 weeks later is when the MSBA asks the city to participate in a review of the terms of the funding agreement, which is when we really have confirmed that there isn't anything, for instance, they're excluding from reimbursement is typically the issue. A draft of the project budget, which is part of what they're reviewing, is going into the submittal. That's my part of the package. And it's fairly detailed. So again, just a heads up that this meeting on the 13th is going to be sort of long and detailed. Okay. So that's the MSBA process. The district is continuing to have input meetings, and Holyoke City Council we've talked about. So not seeing, I see Peter's hand up. Are you still up or are you not? Okay. Going down.
No, I'm up.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
sorry, Margaret, just want to mention that we do have one meeting in the summer. It's August 1st.
okay, good to know.
Okay, and the mayor or Todd McGee, if needed, I'm sure could call a special meeting sometime in July, but that's not always a good thing because people are on vacation and they get away. So sometimes it's tough to have our full numbers there. But I think when I spoke to Aaron earlier, that we did have a date of the 20th as a backup on June 20th. For some reason, we couldn't get the vote on the 6th. So that's just an option. Okay.
Yeah, well, and I mean, to be honest, the MSBA gives you 120 days from their vote to secure the vote. The only reason this is being pulled forward is really to facilitate the demolition project, as well as to stay out of the summer when it's certainly harder to schedule city council.
And we don't want to go in the fall when it's height of election season.
Exactly. So for all of those reasons. So what I can tell you is that my goal is that in order to facilitate this like pretty big discussion here, the consultant team is going to have to generate a lot of materials for you in the couple of days running up to that meeting that you can take a look at. I'm probably going to send out a table of contents so that you can sort of see a sample, and I can share a sample of I can give you a link to another submittal on another project if you want to see what's comparable. But it's mostly going to be about the money and the scope if there are questions about the money. How much we're building and whether it's all fitting within the budget goals. So, okay, so hopefully that gives people a better sense of where we are. So I'm going to unshare that if I can. Stop share. And I'm going to turn it over to Mount Vernon Group because the big design issue we're going to take up is the building systems. So again, be aware that the submission was made to the estimators, and I believe Mount Vernon is planning to present some options which are being priced for building systems. So actually, is Jessica Perella in the group yet? Aaron, do you see Jessica? I just got a text from her that.
Yeah, I promoted her twice and I chatted her. And if she's
Okay.
having trouble getting in, she can
Okay.
chat
Okay.
me and I'll
All right.
speak for her.
Perfect. So I'm going to
Mark-
turn it over to Mount Vernon.
We actually have some questions here.
Yeah, keep three hands up that we can go to questions while Mount Vernon gets ready for their presentation.
Sure.
Whitney, I saw your hand up first, so you can go first.
Mr. Calmer?
Yeah, I'd like to find out when the Marks Committee is going to meet to listen to someone that is going to give us real actual figures of width, size, how much it's going to cost for each individual thing, including the roofs, the parking lots, of the whole building itself.
Yeah.
Someone has to sit down with us and say, this is how much it's going to cost. This is the figures of how wide it's going to be and everything. I think we ought to, before we start rushing into this thing, is money. Find out how much each individual thing is going to cost us and whether we should be cutting right now or even adding if we have to. We want to save the taxpayers a lot of money, but we have to know exactly how much it's going to cost for each individual thing.
So, I perhaps should pull this back up for a second. So that is going to happen at this reconciliation meeting on the 10th. So this item here. So, Mr. Collmore, thank you for bringing this up, because one thing I have done is I did reach out to the members of the design subcommittee within this group who I understand to be Whitney, Mark, Wendy, and Anya. And I have invited them to participate in this reconciliation on the 10th. What I expect will happen is that on the 10th, or at the latest, the 11th, we will send out the estimates with a kind of executive summary of what the takeaways are from that process so that everybody can look at them. And if you're interested in kind of sitting in and listening in on the reconciliation, it's pretty much an all-day event. We're starting at 9 and we're probably going to go till 2 or 3 in the afternoon with a break for the public meeting that is happening in the middle of the day. So if there's anybody in this group who wants to participate in that, just let me know. But it's about as exciting as watching paint dry. So if you want to wait for the executive summary.
If I could just add something, Margaret, I think Mr. Palmer was particularly asking about the detail that would be involved in the estimate. Now, the estimate is incredibly detailed. It's a line item estimate, and every single thing that the gentleman named is on there. But not only by a whole component, it's the subcomponents of roofs, the subcomponents of the parking lots and driveways, and all of the components that make up a building are estimated on a line item basis. So you can go through the entire estimates. It's a number of pages long, and it's by section. And that's how what takes so long about just the reconciliation takes a whole day between 2 separate estimators. So for sure, I think the question that was asked was, are we going to have numbers on all of the components? And the answer is yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Frank, for clarifying. Mark, do you have another question?
Yeah, just before we got into the mechanical components, we got some plans yesterday. Are these different from the ones we got last week.
So, Chris LeBlanc, maybe since I don't know what got sent out last week, what I shared with the committee yesterday was what was sent to the MSBA as the final floor plans that align with the space summary. So there may be some differences. I don't know, Chris and Dennis, can you summarize what they might be?
I mean, nothing substantial from the previous week.
No.
No.
Okay.
It's tinkering.
Okay. I don't need to know exactly. I just got them last night. I really didn't have a chance to look at it.
Yeah.
And before we got into the mechanical, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something.
It is helpful, actually. Typically, the MSBA doesn't look at them ahead of the submittal, but my sense in the email thread was that Elena Sadie, who's our project manager of the MSBA, had offered to look at them and to confirm that nothing is excluded from reimbursement, which is very good. That will be very helpful to know as we get through the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Okay, so no more hands. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention Wendy. So Wendy, I included you because I think you're on the design subcommittee too. So Wendy also was invited again. If anybody else wants to, we can record it if you want. It's long and detailed. So Mount Vernon Group, take it away.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. If you could stop showing yours, Margaret.
Oh, so sorry.
No problem. Okay, so everybody can see that?
Yeah.
Excellent. So we're going to discuss the various mechanical systems this evening. And we have with us tonight our mechanical engineer who will start us off. Marty?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Wanted to talk about some of the project goals for this, for the new middle school. I understand that the city and school itself has a goal of no on-site fossil fuels. So we're looking at all electric HVAC systems for the building. Some of the items that come into play when deciding on an HVAC system, not only is it the initial project cost, but we want to look at the life cycle costs. That takes into account the cost for the system throughout the entire life of the system. We also want to have a system that's maintainable. If a system's installed and can't be properly maintained, it's going to run into problems down the road through the life of the building. And we also looked at the options of full cooling throughout the building or displacement and dehumidification throughout the building. So those are some options that we looked at for the different types of systems. On the slides coming up, we looked at 3 different systems. First system we looked at is a variable refrigerant flow. It's commonly referred to as a VRF system. This consists of several indoor units connected to multiple air source heat pump units located on the roof or at grade. Quite often located on the roof just due to the quantity of the equipment. These systems can provide full heating and cooling. They typically work in conjunction with a dedicated outdoor air system, referred to as a DOAS unit, to provide ventilation throughout the building. These systems typically have some of the lowest initial construction costs for all electric systems. They're modular in design such that you can replace components throughout the life of the system. Some of the cons for this, it has a relatively short lifespan due to the technology on the compressors and that the equipment's located outside. The life expectancy is listed at about 15 years. This type of system does have refrigerant piping throughout the entire school. So that can be a drawback on some concepts. And it takes a fair amount of space, either on roof or on grade, which can hinder PV options or other equipment options in those areas. The second system that we looked at, go to the next slide, was a central air source heat pump system. This system was one that we presented during the initial interview process. Again, an all-electric system. This has relatively low construction costs also. Provides hot and chilled water, which provides flexibility for the school as the school grows. I'm sure there'll be modifications to the building as the years come up to suit the needs of that school. So the hot water, chilled water option provides a lot more flexibility than a VRF system would. The life expectancy for this equipment is slightly longer. These are listed at 19 years, and it takes less space on the roof or at grade than the VRF system. And the third option that we looked at, do we want to stop for questions in between each system or just go right through the end? I'll just continue right through then.
Yeah.
No question, sure.
Yeah, we'll see if hands get raised as you're going, but I
Okay.
don't see.
That's great. Thanks. And the third option we did look at was a geothermal heat pump system. So this system utilizes a series of underground wells to provide hot and chilled water to a central heat pump system located in the building. This system utilizes the relatively constant temperature of the earth as a heat sink or a heat gain, depending on what season you're in for the building. These systems are very efficient. The well equipment has a very long lifespan. The piping is rated at almost 50 years and approximately 20 years for the central equipment. There are some drawbacks to these systems. One being these have a relatively high construction cost, highest of all the electric systems that we looked at. The other area and some challenges that it creates is the area needed for wells. For a building of this size, we'd be looking at approximately 80 vertical wells that would be needed, and the area required for that would be quite challenging on the proposed new site for this. So again, kind of in summary, that we looked at the three main all-electric systems, with the air source heat pump being the one that was discussed during our initial presentation. I think we do have one hand up, if I see that.
I just question if Crozier Field could be used for the well field, or if the money has to be spent on the school property and that would not be an option, or if we've looked into doing it nearby on adjacent lands.
So,
I want to chime in and say, Anya, that I think it's certainly technically possible,
but totally cost prohibited, and the disruption to the field, and
it's parkland. It's parkland.
Okay, so parkland. Okay.
I mean, MVG, tell me if you disagree. It's really hard to touch.
Oh, we're not. The park would have to be restored, but there would be nothing to prohibit them from using the underground, because once it's in for, like Marty said, 50 years, and you can play
forever.
Baseball on it, football. So I guess there would be a process to go through to get approval to do that, and you'd probably lose the field for at least a good part of a season or a season.
But it may be protected under some park.
That's possible.
Open space.
Yes, right.
But it may not be. I don't know. It's certainly the most expensive option.
It's protected.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
I would think maybe they wouldn't be able to spend money. You wouldn't be able to spend school money on parkland because it's not school land. You'd have to make it school property, and you can't do that to parkland. You have to find new parkland. Okay.
That's exactly right.
Great. And one item I didn't touch upon too much is estimated construction costs. And as Margaret had pointed out, the cost estimates are being prepared right now, and that will be kind of an event to come up in the upcoming weeks. Based on previous projects, we've had some estimated construction costs. The geothermal cost right now is listed between $100 and $105 a square foot, compared to the air source heat pump, which was the $85 to $90 range. With the geothermal heat pump, a little more unknown because we don't really know what the challenges are digging the wells until we get into that and do some test borings for those particular areas. Depending on the subsurface material, that cost can fluctuate from there. But geothermal is, obviously a good system, very efficient, but does carry the highest cost of all the systems that we looked at.
I have a question.
Sure.
As far as cost, is the initial cost more, but the running cost less? Because we need to be conscious of that too, like month to month. Does it make sense? You know, if it's going to save us money over the longevity of the project, right, on our monthly bills, then maybe an added expense to start might be worth it.
Correct. The operating costs between all the electric systems are very close. The geothermal is more efficient. That payback gets stretched out quite a long ways. If you were comparing this to a more conventional, say, gas-fired system or so that has a less efficient system, that actually becomes a very big item that we want to address. On the geothermal and air source heat pumps, those operating costs become very close running through. Did that provide enough information?
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, great. Thanks. Any questions on the HVAC side before we move on to the plumbing side? Yes.
Yeah, I had a question. You had the first one. What was the cost per square foot? Was it 85 to 90?
The first one for the variable refrigerant flow was $75 to $80 per square foot.
Okay. Now, on either one of these, are the size about? Did you have an estimate of what the square footage to build either one of those out of the three?
The square footage on the roof?
No, the total. Yeah, I guess you're looking at. I just wonder what the total square footage for the either system.
It's the same, Peter.
They're all the same.
You could call it 106,000 square feet for the building.
Based on the square footage of the building, Peter.
The building.
Okay, so that's where the cost of the total building.
Yes, total
okay.
building.
Okay. Thank you.
I actually have a question, Marty.
Sure.
So we had an early discussion about the relative merits of air conditioning versus dehumidification. And in your explanation, I'm not sure you were specific, but can we just go back through the three and talk about which ones, the relative cost of the air conditioning relative to dehumidification in these options?
Sure. And I think the question may be related to kind of full cooling in all the areas versus displacement ventilation, which provides a dehumidification option. Is that
correct? Yeah.
So just a quick explanation of that. So if you have a building that has full heating and cooling, obviously it provides just as it says. You can heat and cool the spaces as required based on the occupant's set points of the thermostats. On a displacement ventilation system, what we do is we dehumidify the fresh air that's coming in from outside, and we provide that in a school situation that'd be provided directly to the classrooms. So that air that's coming in is dehumidified and cooler, but it doesn't provide full cooling capability. That option allows us to cut down the size of the cooling plant from a cost savings point of view, and it provides fresh, cool air to the spaces. And I think one of the dates I saw was a setup for a tour of one of the schools that has displacement ventilation coming up.
Correct.
So, that would be a great opportunity to kind of see and feel how those spaces feel. We've had very good feedback on the displacement ventilation systems that we've done. We've done a handful of them over the last couple of years. Even in the warmer temperatures, we're getting good feedback that the occupant comfort is still very high, even with the dehumidification portion of the building.
Whitney, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Marty, in relationship to this particular option, low life expectancy related to primarily the VRF systems, the compressors and whatnot. How about the distribution with the actual refrigerant runs and the line sets? Can those be reutilized, and do they have a longer lifespan because you got a tremendous amount of plumbing going throughout the building now?
Correct. The lifespan of the piping system is much longer than the equipment. the piping system's estimated to be 50 to 75 years or something like that. One of the potential risks for that is a change in refrigerant down the line. In 20 years from now, if a refrigerant changes and it could need either different pressure rating or different material on that refrigerant piping system, that could cause some issues. But as far as longevity of the infrastructure in the building, being the piping system, that has a much longer life.
So, Marty, going back to Anya's question, without huge extrapolation, are you prepared to render some type of operational cost annually for each of these systems? You say that the geothermal is higher, the highest efficiencies. Can there be actual tangible annual operational costs rendered for these different systems for the size of our building, so we can incorporate that into what might be a payback or a reason why we may invest in a more expensive system?
Yep. As part of the schematic design, we will do a life cycle cost analysis, and we'll be looking at these options. And that will include initial cost, projected maintenance costs, and operating costs for all three systems.
And which is going to be presented to the MSBA, Margaret, with the summary that will come up based on the 13th of April?
Well, I think it's going to be the one that gets us to the budget that you all want.
And that decision will be made when? And between when?
On the 13th.
In one meeting?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't leave any time for public comment.
Totally agreed.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lubold?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if we could kind of get back to the displacement dehumidification that was brought up earlier. What are the costs for installing, something like that? Because, that would be, so we would have like a VRF system and dehumidification, and it would be split up amongst different areas of the school. Is that, or one of the other systems?
Correct. Yeah. Typically, certain areas of the school would provide full cooling under any option. There would be normally the administration areas, the special education classrooms as a requirement. And then some of the large assembly areas, such as the gym, cafeteria, and media center, are typically provided with full cooling.
And with the displacement system, what's the cost per square foot of something like that installed?
I think that we would see during the cost estimates coming up for the comparison between displacement for the normal classroom areas versus full cooling in the normal classroom areas. I think those would be the differences that we would see. We'd have to look at those numbers with the cost estimator, I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Can I actually ask one other question? Because I think it's pertinent to Whitney's question. So, this is a question for Frank. So, Frank, a big part of the reason Mount Vernon Group was selected for the project was that you've been able to produce very cost-effective buildings.
Yes.
What has been the basis of the building systems for those buildings that you were sort of offering as sort of comparable?
Are you speaking of the HVAC system?
Yes.
Okay. At Marlboro, we have gas-fired boilers and the dehumidification and displacement system, ventilation system. I think, what did we have at Ludlow, Marty?
That was the same. That was gas-fired.
Same thing. That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought they were both that. So yes. But we are, it's just recently where people are going all electric. We are looking at these other systems, and these are more expensive than the gas-fired boiler.
So, just to summarize, so all of these systems are more expensive because of the need for them to be 100% electric.
That's correct.
And the systems that were in the previous model schools
yes.
that Mount Vernon is sort of basing the model school approach on. So, you know, I don't mean to be dismissive of Whitney's comments, but I think what's going to happen is it's definitely going to be, the cost is going to be a huge issue when we look at the estimates, and coming out of the reconciliation on the 10th, part of the executive summary is going to be making a recommendation. It's my understanding the estimators are being asked to take a crack at estimating all three of these systems, correct?
Yes.
No.
Well, they're not.
So what I sent, the narrative that we sent over was the central heat pump system, which was based on our, that's an all electric. It was based on the initial interview process of what we would provide for Hoyle as part of that, requiring all electric, with the difference of it being the chilled water and chilled beams and the displacement. So there will be two components for that.
But we need to have numbers for the other two as well.
Sure.
So they can extrapolate that from the base.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I mean, I think if you're going to make a presentation like this, we do need to be able to come back to the committee and say, this was the base condition because it's the least expensive, but you have the option to do these other more expensive options.
Yes.
And again, having operating expenses might help make that decision too, because it might be more upfront, but less over the long term.
Yeah.
Mr. Anderson, did you still have a question, or has your hand just not been put down?
It has been put down. Mr. Collimer has a question.
All right, go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, can anyone give us a price on, I was looking at a plan the other day, and 90% of the roof is a flat roof. Is there any way we can get a pitched roof, or how much does it cost for a pitched roof over a flat roof?
It's more expensive, but I can address that. We have a couple of accents on the building that are pitched, and but we found that for the placement of solar panels and other things, you need the flat roof. And the flat roofs, the way they're built today, designed properly, drained properly, have quite a long lifespan, even in some cases longer than the pitched roof. So the roof is not exactly flat. It is pitched. All the pitching, and that includes the steel underneath the roof, is pitched toward drains. So it has positive drainage in all areas of the roof, and it's very carefully designed that way. So it looks flat, but it's not actually flat. It has a slope on it for the drainage of water.
All right. Do you want to continue?
Okay.
Sure. If we're all set with the HVAC items, we also wanted to discuss a little bit on the plumbing side, some energy efficiency options and sustainability options that we looked at. Some of the first items is indoor water use reduction. We have options, obviously, low and ultra low flow plumbing fixtures, dual flush toilets can be options to be considered. And as far as hot water generation, which is part of the operating cost and part of the energy use for the building, we looked at a couple of options, again, for non-fossil fuel use. Typically, central electric resistance with some storage tanks is a very cost-effective option. We can expand on that a little for a tankless on-demand water heater. So we have no storage loss at that point. It's an instantaneous unit, doesn't use storage tanks, and just provides hot water on demand. And other ones that we can mix in are point-of-use water heaters. So these work well if you have a remote toilet room, something far away from the central boiler room. Instead of running piping all the way down to that room, you have the thermal loss through the piping and the standby losses. In some cases, it's more efficient to put in a small little point-of-use water heater for that particular case. So in addition to the HVAC side, we're looking at the plumbing side for any places we can make some sustainability goals, conserve water and energy on both sides. Any questions on the plumbing side?
There's gonna be like fountains, water bottle fountains for the kids, right? Not just spigots, but the ones where they can actually put their bottle there and fill their bottle.
Yeah, bottle fill stations are pretty standard now. Yes. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Are there options that Whitney is as the kind of leader of the facilities group for the schools needs to chime in on? Have you had a chance to seek his thoughts on the plumbing stuff?
We have not as yet, no. But definitely be welcome for that.
Do we need to schedule a meeting? I mean, I think this is a really good kind of high level presentation of the options for everybody, for the entire committee's input, but I think we may, as a follow-up to this meeting, want to actually look with Whitney at some of these and process this, because I think because this is all happening so fast, by the time we get the estimate numbers back, I want Whitney to know when he's looking at numbers, what those numbers represent relative to these options.
Perhaps a
Absolutely.
design subcommittee meeting.
Yep, design subcommittee meeting would be good. So that's a follow-up to this, because
We just got to have the information. You know, things are moving quickly. We don't necessarily always have the information to talk about a lot of these type of items. You know, so we've been hesitant to put meetings, you know, forward for that reason.
Yeah,
And I understand it is moving quite quickly, and you know, so I'm willing to have a meeting whenever we can to, you know, facilitate that or talk about information as it comes forward.
Jessica, honey, I keep seeing your hand raised go up and down. Did you need to chime in on something?
Hi, thank you, Erin. So I'm debating if I should hold my peace or if I should speak. I don't know too much about HVAC, so if these questions aren't, I don't know, up to standard, I apologize. So just in looking at this, my first question is I understand all repairs are costly, but like it's great when it's new, but when it breaks down, out of the 3 HVAC systems, is there one that is like more cost efficient in the long run to repair? Like if things happen, like if you're speaking of wells, like I imagine you'd have to redig everything up, and you know that could be costly in the long run too, even though it's efficient. 50 years is going to pass by at some point. So is there any opinion on that?
There is. The wells themselves, once they're installed, are pretty maintenance free. They're kind of buried out of place. You have some pumps that are associated with that, but that's inside the building, and that's just normal mechanical equipment. So the wells, once they're dug, you know, assuming they were dug correctly and everything's fine, they're pretty much maintenance free for the first, you know, 40, 50 years of their life expectancy. The other systems, some are a little more durable, a little more maintenance friendly moving forward. And the serviceability of the systems are an important part that we try to account for through the life cycle cost. 10 years ago, any one of these 3 systems would have been a little bit more challenging from a maintenance point of view, just because the systems were still they weren't new, but they weren't as common as they are today. Now all 3 systems, you know, all service companies and service techs are familiar with the technology. They can be maintained. So there are some that are a little more friendlier. The air source heat pump system, which was the second option we presented there. That's the majority of the equipment is kind of contained within one box. So that's helpful from a maintenance and serviceability point of view.
Easier maintenance. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was that?
No, easier maintenance.
Yeah, a little easier maintenance on that side. And we try to capture that in the life cycle cost analysis also. We factor that in of what's there. The other important part of the maintenance side is what other equipment is within the city or within the school district. For instance, if the school district already has air source heat pumps somewhere, that's great. You know, training bases is already there, that the skill set from the facility group may already be there for that point. So that helps to build on similar systems throughout the city, if possible, when we move forward.
Okay. And I just one more question. So I wasn't familiar with like I'm gonna call it the floodplain that leans towards the high school. Is there any way to incorporate some of that water into like a recyclable manner in any of this, or just in around the school somewhere in general? Like like eco-friendly efficiency anyhow?
I'm not sure if we, and Chris, you may be able to answer the floodplain issue. If we get into touching that at all, does that open up a bigger can of worms, or is there opportunity there?
Yeah, typically recapturing water would be through rainwater. Those systems get to be pretty expensive. They have to be maintained, sanitized, and things of that nature. So they become a maintenance issue down the road, or can be.
I think rainwater buckets could be explored for if, as the building itself gets established, if the school decides to, do a garden in the courtyard or something like that, it can be just, figured out down the road too.
Right.
The DPW, I think.
Thank you.
Anya, did you have a question, hon?
Yeah, that made me think of gray water, and if that's like a code issue, would that be an option as far as sustainability points to use gray water for anything?
Yeah, there was a big move toward gray water quite a while ago. The problem is you have to have two plumbing systems. You cannot have the same system for the potable water and the gray water. So you have that. Keeping the water without growths and other things, because you can have a large tank with standing water. And what's happened typically with these systems is that without regular maintenance, they get pretty nasty, and so people moved away from them in public buildings. I haven't
can
seen
only
them.
imagine. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on plumbing? All right, we can move along. So our next system will be the electrical systems. The school, if you've been to the Marlboro School yet, or if you're planning on going, as well as Ludlow, you'll see all our buildings have very energy efficient LED direct and indirect lighting throughout the spaces. They're typically controlled with occupancy sensors and daylight controls, so that if the rooms get brighter on those nice sunny days, it'll dim the lights down to the required level to save energy. The school will have an emergency generator backup. That generator will take care of life safety equipment, communications, and no freeze heat control of heat. One of the things we did discuss in meeting with the mayor, the emergency management official, police, fire, etc. One of the things that came out was possibly using the community area of the building, the gym, the cafeteria, kitchen, and nurse, as warming and cooling centers. So the thought would be to include those loads on the generator as well. So during the couple days, 3-4 days, whatever that term may need, there is a larger space that could serve the community under those needs. The electrical systems will also include a full fire alarm security system technologies. We'll be meeting with the educational group at some point to discuss technologies as we move forward. Full security system. My understanding is we'll be talking with this committee further on that as well. And then the fire alarm. Like any sustainable school, and the code does require now, electrical vehicle charging stations on site. So overall, electric systems are very energy efficient. They'll provide the appropriate lighting. And as part of that, natural day lighting will take care of some of this as well. Is there any questions that you have on electric?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. I don't know if you guys are, I'm sure in communications at some point with Hoyle Gas and Electric, but they have programs that help with installation of electrical vehicle charging stations. So there might be opportunity for some reimbursements there. And then as far as technology, I'm wondering if there's been any communication. I don't think the city VIOS comes up that high right now. But if there's any communication to see if there's anything that can be done with the Gas and Electric to get the internet service through them as opposed to Comcast for the building.
Right. We will be talking with them, Aaron, as part of all that. So we'll be setting up a meeting, big picture right now. So I know Hoyle Gas and Electric will help us with some of those. Like a lot of communities, they have their own fiber now for internet or service. So absolutely, those are all things that will be part of that whole package for electric and internet utility services.
Okay. Mr. Yost, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Or I just wanted to clarify that there won't be some central control system for the lighting. It will have individual sensors. So each room will pretty much act independently. There won't be some major automated control system or anything like that.
Yeah, so individual spaces will have their own controls and they will be programmable as well, so that facilities can control them in-house if lights are left on. But individual rooms will all have these individual controls in them. Occupants come in, the lights go on, occupants leave after a certain period of time. We can set the time frame, 15 minutes, half hour, they'll go off.
All right, yeah.
Anything else? Okay, so one of the other things we wanted to share as part of the building system is some of the sustainable features that are incorporated. This building is will look to be a very sustainable building. And some of those things with these systems would be the energy and atmosphere. So high performance mechanical, electrical, and plumbing building systems provide to contribute, 30% improvement over baseline energy code. On-site renewable energy on the roof location to help reduce annual energy costs by the way of solar panels. Sub-metering of light fixtures will be provided for the building management system. So Whitney and his staff can monitor energy consumption and what's on and off, et cetera. One of the big things that MSBA requires is commissioning of your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems to ensure that they've been installed properly and they are operating properly. Get the most out of them. With water efficiency, as Marty had mentioned, low flow plumbing fixtures will be provided to achieve a minimum 40% water use reduction. When it comes to the site, drought resistant local adaptive plants will be provided for landscaping to eliminate permanent irrigation. And then water meters are provided to help monitor that water consumption. And then indoor environmental quality. So as part of the indoor quality, right, low emitting materials such as paints, adhesives, and flooring to promote good air quality. We're required to work with the district to provide an indoor air quality management plan during construction. And then just prior to occupancy, a full building flush out will be performed to reduce the pollutants produced during construction. And then obviously, like any building, sufficient natural daylight and view windows provided in classrooms to promote the occupants' visual comfort. So those are some of the features of your, say, mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems. Questions?
Isaka has a question.
Hi, I have a question sort of in this post-pandemic era, thinking about air filtration in general for the school. So what are there systems in place? I wasn't sure if this was an HVAC question, but are there systems that are being put in place sort of to support air filtration? Heaven forbid we have another.
There is, and actually we're taking a couple of different approaches for it. One, we're trying to enhance the filtration rate on all the equipment, improving the filter rating, going to a minimum of MERV 13 for all the air handler units. We're increasing the amount of outdoor air above code minimums. So between the enhanced filtration, additional ventilation coming into the building, and the system we discussed earlier, which was the displacement air system, that is designed such that fresh filtered outdoor air comes into the classroom low in the room. There's a diffuser just above the floor level. And that clean air will wash over the occupants and we exhaust at the ceiling level. So what happens, it pulls all the pollutants and contaminants away from the breathing zone of the occupants up to the ceiling, and that gets exhausted out. So we have the filtration, we have the ventilation, we have how we're presenting the air into the space. And we're also making changes to the way the systems are operated. Historically, the HVAC systems have always been geared towards energy efficiency, which meant reducing the amount of outdoor air and the amount of time the system is operated. COVID kind of reversed everything there. Now we're really looking at air quality. So for building operations, as Chris had mentioned, on the construction side, we'll have a pre-occupancy purge where we purge the building for a fixed period of time just to make sure the building is clean. But as the building is occupied throughout the use of it, the HVAC systems can come on earlier. So we're purging the building out almost on a daily basis, not a full purge, but we're bringing in fresh air earlier in the day. And then we allow it to run slightly longer after the folks leave. So we're cleaning it at the end of the day too. So kind of a multi-pronged approach here for the indoor air quality. Just for that, I think COVID has really highlighted the necessity for indoor air quality filtration. So we're taking
and Marty, I think it's important to point out, and what really made me a believer in the displacement is that we are, as Marty says, you're bringing in all fresh air and you're exhausting all the used air. There's no recycled air in these systems. And I think that was the biggest thing that was demanded during COVID, because people were looking at all kinds of polarizing filters and things like this. And so this way all the air that's breathed, it goes out and get all fresh air coming in. So that is a cycle. We do retain the conditioned air. It's conditioning is used in a recovery wheel where you're either heating or cooling is put back into the building, but not the air itself.
Thank you.
Okay.
And yeah, I would add one thing about that displacement. They are the quietest systems there are because it's high volume, low velocity. So it's not like the old unit ventilators that you can hear them, wheezing away all day. These are really good for classroom and for studying. You don't hear them; they're quiet.
Yeah, there's on the displacement side, there's essentially no mechanical moving parts in the classrooms.
Right.
So it from a quality point of view and a noise point of view, it's very, very good.
Okay.
No old-fashioned hot boxes near the window heating up the classroom.
No.
That's what Peck has now. Boy, does it add some heat to that room.
Yeah.
It does. So the last part of the sustainability that we want to tie in to the previous slide is this school will be looking to be a Northeast CHIP certified building, similar to Marlboro, very equal to the LEED requirements. And here's two of the scorecard sheets for that high performance school requirement on indoor air systems. So you look at on the left, the indoor air environmental quality. There's a number of items that we look to meet and achieve and obtain those points based on some of the things we just discussed. Enhanced filtration, dedicated outdoor air, construction indoor air quality management, thermal comfort, daylight availability, and lighting performance. And on the right-hand side, when you get into the energy and water, same thing. Superior energy performance for the building gets us 9 points. Commissioning, which is required by MSP to make sure your systems have been installed and are operating properly. Renewable energy performance, and then water with minimal reduction in potable water use, reduced irrigation systems, and things of that nature. So we're really looking to make this building high performing on all levels, not just the envelope and making sure it's energy efficient, but the mechanical systems as well.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Okay.
So that's what we have for our systems. We will look to coordinate with Margaret and Aaron on meeting with Whitney and a couple of the city officials to get additional service requirements and system notation. So,
well, I think what's being requested is there is a design subcommittee that several members of this group, including Whitney, are involved in. And I think it would be good to have a follow-up meeting with them I also see Anya's hand is up, and then I have a comment or a question. So Anya, do you want to speak up?
I think her
No,
hand-
sorry, I left it up. I don't have a question. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
And
Let's
then,
take down the presentation so people
Sure.
can
yeah,
look at each other's faces.
Camilla also had a question in the chat about bottle filling stations. Well, she's asking if the water in the bottle filling station in the building that's drinkable is filtered water or tap water. Now, I would have said tap water. Anthony answered filtered water. So
Yeah, the systems themselves have a filter built into them, as far as I know. Right,
Yeah,
guys?
the bottle filling stations, they have a filtration system within them. So even the water, well, I don't want to speak for them. You guys can answer that question, but just speaking to what we have now, the bottle filling stations we have now.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. The stations themselves have a self-contained filter system in them to go through.
Hoyoke has pretty good water quality, so.
yeah, you really do. So I have a question. Does anybody else on the committee have a comment or question before I chime in? Okay, so here's my question. So there's a change in the building code recently, the energy code, that is proving very challenging. And in fact, one might go so far as to say that the Department of Energy Resources has made a mistake in putting out a model that doesn't really work based on what I'm hearing. But can you talk a little bit about how you anticipate meeting the requirements of the current energy model, and if because for Martin to do his work, there are assumptions that have been made about the building envelope performance. And I was not present when you made your presentation about the building envelope, so I apologize. But to me, it sort of all wraps in together. So could you comment just generally about what assumptions you've made about building envelope performance as they drive the work that Marty's doing to figure out what it's going to take to heat and cool the building?
Well,
So-
it is. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Frank.
No, go right ahead. Say what we were doing then.
So, Margaret, the question you asked is, we're doing this on other projects where we're, the envelope is very energy efficient. We've had conversations with our energy modeler, triple pane windows, the amount of insulation that goes into the walls and the roof, and creating what the new code is requiring is a lower energy demand building overall, so that Marty can then in turn create the systems that are needed for that lower energy demand.
So,
If that's
sorry,
like
did you
big
say
picture?
triple pane windows?
Yes.
So you're assuming these are triple pane windows?
I believe that's what we sent to the estimator, yes. For the new Teddy pathways that are required for the energy envelope.
And who's your building energy modeler?
We used a green engineer,
Okay,
Anthony Hardman.
great.
When we worked with him on other projects recently and we've had the same discussions.
But this would be the first school that you've done that would be triple paned, or were the other model schools triple paned?
No, this would be the first model that will be, because it wasn't in place at that time.
Okay. So the previous schools were based on double pane glass, and this would be triple pane.
As all the schools were in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This thing that happened on the first of this year is proving to be quite a challenge for some school projects. So, okay, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Great.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on, we already discussed the changes to the open meeting laws, so we don't need to go over that again. Did we need to go over discussion of the timing to city council, or did we go over that when you went over the general schedule, Margaret?
I can put that back up if people want to revisit it, but I think we kind of Mark shaking his head. What I will do is, because this wasn't in your pack, I'll take a snip and send it around so everybody's got a copy, and we'll get it in the meeting notes. Okay.
Hey, Margaret, I have an electronic document that we're keeping updated over time with this. So can you send it to me and let me fix our electronic document that everyone has links to?
That would be
That'll
great.
help on version control. Thanks.
Thanks.
Mayor Garcia, did you need to intervene?
No, I was just gonna, because you said open meeting law, and I just learned about 5 minutes ago, and I'll keep an eye on this and communicate with everybody if anything changes. But I guess the House and the Senate passed the bill to allow remote and hybrid meetings options for public bodies through March 31st, 2025. It won't go into effect until the governor actually signs. So if he signs, he accepts, and that'll be law. So if that happens, Erin, I'll let you know.
Okay.
And then we don't, that'll take care of that.
Okay, thank you.
Great. That's great news.
All right, so we do not need to revisit the schedule, correct? We've already done that, covered that tonight.
I think so, yeah.
All right, great. So review next steps from the last meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve our minutes from.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Gold.
Second.
Mr. Tillman on the second. Any discussion? Anybody have comments or concerns on those minutes? Seeing none, we can take a vote. If everybody, voting members, can raise their hand virtually or physically. Keep them up for a second so Ms. Linville can get count, please. I love watching her scan the screen to try to count everyone. All right, thanks, guys. You can put your hands down. Any opposed? Pretty sure Mr. Soto just hasn't put his hand down yet. So seeing none opposed, thank you. Just a reminder to sign up for the upcoming building tours. There's a form attached to our agenda you can link into to fill out. It's Friday, March 31st at 3:30. We're heading to Ludlow. We're going to be leaving Holyoke around 3 p.m. Ms. Linville, do we have a meeting destination, designated meeting spot? I can't.
Yeah. We can meet at the Dean campus, 1045 Main Street. And if someone has a transportation issue and can't get down there, just let me know in that form and I'll pick you up first beforehand.
Do you want to meet in the upper parking lot that parents would go into the school, or the lower parking lot by the gymnasium?
Yeah, let's meet in upper. I feel like there's more parking there.
Space, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so just so everyone knows, that's on the side street that steep hill that goes up between Main and Northampton Street, or you can actually access it from Main Street too. And then, all right, so then we briefly mentioned our in-person meeting is coming up April 5th. We would love to see everybody attend. I did pick up our flyers for that today from Holyoke High. Kathy Ortiz and I have been working on a nice list of places we'd like flyers to be distributed. If anybody on the committee would like to come see me and get some flyers and help with distribution, please reach out to me. I have, I think, 500. Some places will just need one, but some places like the Boys and Girls Club, maybe we can leave a little stack for parents to take. So if you guys can coordinate with me on that. And then our April, oh, by the way, I've sent that to the city council administrator as well, so that he could share with city council. And then our virtual meeting is April 10th. It'll be the same kind of agenda as the meeting on the 5th, which is in person. These other meetings we went through in our agenda, in our schedule with Margaret, but Thursday, April 13th is our next meeting. And then Tuesday, April 25th. Remember, that's not a Thursday. So make sure you guys put those in your calendars. The flyer for the meeting is attached to the agenda as well. So if you don't want to pick it up from me in person, feel free to grab it there, print and share on social media, share with your email databases. Yes, Jessica?
I can contact you, Erin, but do you mind sharing, where can we pick them up from you? Or do you want to talk about that separately?
Oh no, girl, my address is public enough. As an elected, if you guys want to stop by my house, I can leave them on my front porch for you guys. I'll type my address in the chat too. It's 44 Norwood Terrace. And I can always make more copies at the office if we need more copies. And then if you guys reach out to me via email or write in the chat that you want to help, we have a nice spreadsheet too of places that we'd like to see them go to.
Okay.
All right, great.
Thank you for all that organization, Erin. That is just huge.
I think that covers it. Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to discuss or go over at tonight's meeting?
One thing that pops into my mind as we do these public meetings, because I know we're going to hear it when we go into council from one particular counselor about making sure we're engaging residents in the neighborhood. I don't know if you want to do a separate public meeting in the neighborhood or make sure we flyer that neighborhood to engage in one of these upcoming public meetings, but just keep that in mind because I'm sure it's going to get brought up and asked, and I want members of this group to be able to confidently say that you did it.
Yeah. I mean, if people want to help, you can certainly flyer the neighborhood. If anybody does that on their own, keep in mind you cannot put information in someone's mailbox. It's against federal law. So if you do go door to door, you must either knock or slip it in their actual door. And the meeting is in the neighborhood. It's just it's at the high school instead of at the Peck location for convenience reasons, I believe. But the city councilors have copies of the flyers as well. And we can certainly coordinate with the counselor in that ward to maybe they have an email list of constituents they could share it with, or, you know, we definitely plan to put a flyer at the senior center and all kinds of after school programs and places like that. So
if we really want to flyer addresses, like I'm curious, like how big of a scope around there, and then we should probably print more flyers.
I would say the people with the main concerns are the people that live on McIntosh and those couple streets there where handle the most traffic from the school, and then maybe say Chapin Street area behind the school as well. I wonder if like a broadcast phone call or something could go. I don't think we do that citywide though.
We can, you know what? I can do that.
You can do that.
Yeah. I can do a robocall inviting people to the public meeting for the schools.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If you want.
I think we have one set up to go for the district, Josh. So, and I'm sure we'll have it translated. So do you want me to just send you that? The same.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You can change it if you want, but okay, that'd be awesome.
And while we're talking about the event, I know we all approved the date and it certainly wasn't brought to my attention at the time and not something that I can say I've honestly ever considered, but it did get brought up in our school committee meeting that is the first day of Passover. So moving forward with public events, we want to be conscious of the Jewish calendar as well. We, of course, would never schedule something on Easter or Christmas. So we want to be conscious and sensitive to all of our residents here in the city. And so just moving forward, we can't change it now. It's already scheduled. But I just want to put that out there and acknowledge it publicly that we be more conscious of that moving forward. All right. If anybody has anything else, feel free to chime in. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Tom. Thank you, Mr. Lubel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will take a hand raise, please.
I'm good.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget to register if you're planning to coming on the tours next week. All right. Have a good evening.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
No, wait.